Hello everyone. Since this is either a highlight, a standalone book, or the first episode in a series, I'm jumping in to remind you what the rules are for this podcast. First rule is, no real people stories. That means that any details from our own lives are merely anecdotal, we do not read books about real people, and we are not reading historical fiction. The second rule is that we are basing our analyses off of how the author treats characters and what they put them through. We are not judging the accuracy of the trauma, the accuracy of any actual conditions that may be portrayed, nor the authenticity of a character's reaction to that trauma or that particular condition. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The hosts are not trained professionals, and their opinions come solely from personal experience. In this episode, we discuss fictional depictions of trauma and violence that may not be suitable for all audiences. Please take care of yourselves. Specific content warnings for each episode can be found in the show notes. Events in the media are discussed in approximate order of escalation. This episode contains spoilers.
I'm Nicole.
And I'm Robin. And this time on Books That Burn, we are discussing The Storyteller's Daughter by Cameron Dokey. From the publisher, we have this description. In a faraway kingdom, a king has been betrayed. Deeply hurt and bitterly angry, he vows never to be deceived again. Unfortunately, the king's plan to protect himself will endanger all of the realm's young women, unless one of them will volunteer to marry the king and surrender her life. To everyone's relief and horror, one young woman steps forward, the daughter of a legendary storyteller. Shahrazad believes it is her destiny to accept this risk and sacrifice herself. On the night of her wedding to the king, Shahrazad begins to weave a tale. Fascinated, the king lets her live night after night. Just when Shahrazad dares to believe she has found a way to keep her life and an unexpected love, a treacherous plot will disrupt her plan. Now she can only hope that love is strong enough to save her. So we are replacing the list of characters with reading the thing from the publisher. And I think it's going to go well, because now you know a little bit of what the story is before we proceed to not talk about the plot very much. So, our first topic is power imbalance. Did you want to start us off on this, Nikki?
Sure. So the power imbalance that comes up the most in this book is between the king and his brand new bride. A little bit of setup here. So Shahrazad is blind and also potentially, theoretically, going to die in the morning, as well as being the brand new bride of the ruler of their country. So she has about 4 different things that take her down and put her under the... Take away her ability to be in control of the situation, essentially, and hand it over to the king. There's a couple of memorable moments in their first actual time spent together where the king just is surprised that Shahrazad doesn't just do something for herself. There's one moment where he just invites her verbally to partake in their food that was brought and doesn't help her, doesn't tell her what there is, doesn't assist her at all. And she just turns listening to him, and he goes, it's just this whole moment where he realizes what he just did. He just left her to fend for herself in a situation where it's his room, his apartments. He knows what the setup is. He knows what the room is. He knows what was brought for their food, and just didn't help her. And it didn't even occur to him.
It's not even like they were at a restaurant or no, he is like, I am the king. There is food in the room.
Good luck.
And she's like,
and
great.
She's
Also,
like, all right, cool. I don't even know. She doesn't even necessarily know where the table is or if it's on a table. You know, there's no information that he gives to her at all. But it's this there's about 3 or 4 of those in that one scene where, you know, the king just makes a statement, and as though Scheherazade has the ability to just do something, and she can't. He expresses surprise that she doesn't just invite her sister to come hang out with them, and she says something along the lines of, well, I can't. You're in charge.
It's not like she got echolocation when the fever took her eyesight. Like, no,
I mean,
no,
but that's just an example, you know.
Right. That's like,
yeah.
I mean, like, they didn't, like, do a room tour. Like,
no, he didn't tell her anything. He led her to the couch. She sat down. That's the only thing in the room she even knows is there. Like, yeah.
Yeah, he didn't even do the, like, this is now where you're going to be kind of a tour that you'd give regardless of someone being sighted or not.
Yeah.
Nope. Nothing, because, I mean, the expectation is that she's going to die tomorrow, so it's not like he needs to give her a tour of where everything is. And then he proceeds to have this entire interaction. Like, if there were no other power imbalances, the fact that he has declared she's going to die tomorrow is enough to completely warp all the rest of the situation. Like, there's so many power imbalances that when Nicole was listing the relevant ones, she didn't even list the age gap. We don't know what the numbers are, but it's implied based on, like, her being at least his second wife and, like, you know, who he'd been with for a while. Like, there's all these reasons for us to believe she is
at least 10 years younger.
Hopefully an older teenager. We don't know.
I always had the impression that she was, like, very early 20s and he was at least in his 30s.
Yeah, like,
they don't actually tell you in the book, but that was the impression that I got from
he's
different
already
factors.
I mean, it's a situation where, like, we don't know what the age gap is.
No.
I'm kind of assuming there is one because he seemed like he was a kid who was significantly older than her as a kid during the interaction and the backstory.
He was a teenager when she was a child.
Right.
So, like, again, maybe like a 10-year gap, like 5 and 15 or 6 and 16. That's what I kind of assumed.
Yeah, but, like, it doesn't go into that.
No.
And I'm not necessarily trying to, like, harp on that specifically, but just, like, there are so many power imbalances that, like, the age difference, which is, I think, the second most obvious one after, or what would normally be the second most obvious one after king and subject is usually age gap. And no, it doesn't even matter. There's so many other things in here.
And and the situation with the food is just an example of how the king doesn't even really he doesn't even consider his own power in a space. It doesn't even occur to him. He just lives like that, and that's just how he is. And it's so interesting. So this is something else that I kind of thought of in preparation for talking about this topic. The king's first wife was the sister of the king, or the sister of the previous kings, in a land that his father had conquered. So he was a king or a prince at the time and married a princess or an ex-princess. So Scheherazade is really his first wife who is not from that status, is not used to wielding that same power that he is. I mean, even like, he just doesn't interact with people who don't have that ability to just wield that control over their environment. And so, you know, there's a moment where, you know, he says something and her response is, well, I'm going to die tomorrow, so why would I bother? And he's just, oh no, like, again, just this whole, what have I done? I'm doing this all wrong.
Because the thing is that, like, and we'll talk about this when we get to our third topic, but, our second topic of the infidelity, but his wife cheating on him is almost definitely the first time he has felt helpless in a significant way. I'm not saying nothing's happened to him, but it is the first one that is notable enough to show up in this particular version of the narrative.
Yes.
Regardless of whether the real life version of a person in this situation would have had other things, narratively, he hasn't had other things. And so he has been made to feel helpless one time, in a way that he has been told is going to keep happening, and it's going to keep feeling this way. And he fundamentally doesn't want... He has so forcibly rejected the one time he's been made to feel helpless that he has decided to kill as many women as it takes to never feel that way again, and still doesn't seem to have any understanding of how much and how often, just by being next to him, other people are made to feel helpless. Like, he understands, I assume, generally what that does for him when he tries to make people have that feeling, but he doesn't understand what it feels like and the way that exerts power in situations other than him literally giving an order.
I would argue that he doesn't understand for two reasons. One being that everything we see of the description of his father and brother and him and their rule and how they treat their subjects, he's not out to make people feel helpless. That's not really a goal. His goal is to uplift his people and have them have pride in being his people. So that's probably not an experience that he's used to passing on to people. And the second reason I think this is because he is surprised when the brothers of his dead wife would have any animosity toward him, literally whatsoever. He doesn't understand. He doesn't even understand why they would have a problem with him now being in charge of them. Like, just does not even occur to him, absolutely confuses him. You know, his father conquered their land and now they're better off. Why are they mad? Just
sorry, I might have been
clue.
Projecting a little bit from another series that I've been reading. I have spent the last bunches of weeks absorbed in the Kate Daniels books, and I've read like 3 of them in between reading this book and our record.
Okay.
And so I was thinking of the like ruler figure in that book when I was like, knows how to feel helpless, and I'm like, no, you're right, this guy, nope, hasn't had that at all.
Now, to be fair, he tries to be the best ruler, the most benevolent king that he can be. He's right. He's not inflicting harm just because he just doesn't get it and so he's just doing evil. Like, that's not what's going on. But in this instance, like, it's just not an experience that he tries to cultivate for himself or for others. And so, you know, when it happens by his own decree, he just doesn't know what to do. And it doesn't even occur to him that he has the power to just reverse it instantly. Not a clue.
This feels like the kind of setting that like has a default assumption that power bestows competency. That the characters would have this assumption. The narrator definitely does not.
No, absolutely.
But like the characters having the thought that power bestows competency, and like I do think that a part of the arc of this story is them finding out that it doesn't. A little bit. But yeah, like he doesn't know what he doesn't know and isn't in a position that would encourage him to figure out that there could be a thing that he didn't know that matters. Because I'm sure he might not know how to wash dishes, but he probably also wouldn't think that that matters.
Right.
If that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he doesn't want to mistreat the people who are washing the dishes.
Yeah, no, this guy, no, he doesn't, but he also somehow doesn't think of, I'm gonna murder one of your daughters every month as mistreating.
Well,
because
no,
I said power, because that's the whole thing.
That's the thing
he's decided to do, that he has the right to do, and therefore it is right to do.
But he also
he's
doesn't,
doing it.
He also doesn't think it through, is the thing.
Oh, no.
He says, he makes the decree, and that decree shocks his brother because it is so out of character. It's just him lashing out in pain, and he doesn't care, probably for the first time in his life, does not care who it hits. And then when he is faced with the reality of that decision, when Scheherazade is his new bride in his apartments, and he suddenly realizes that he's going to get to know her tonight, and then she'll die, like, he doesn't know what to do. Because it does hit him that he has made this decree. And Scheherazade brings it up a couple of times and basically says, like, well, you know, this is what you've decided. And he just kind of panics because that isn't actually that's not the kind of person that he thought he was. And it's not the kind of person he wanted to be. And he doesn't know what to do with the repercussions because he does care. And then he just kind of panics and goes, okay, well, you know, I have a reason to let you live tonight. I'll figure it out later. Like we get a moment where he's in his own head, like, okay, okay, you'll live for tonight and I'll figure it out later and I'll deal with it later and I won't deal with it now.
Yeah. On to our next topic, which is infidelity. All right. So both brothers' wives cheated on them. We have this kind of like story segment that pauses from the main action to do this whole backstory bit about how both of them had their wives cheat on them. Sherar's brother took it a bit better than he did. Like, I don't know, like the story isn't about him, so I don't know that he took it well, but it would be hard to take it worse than Scherer did. Oh,
did we not write down his name?
I got it. I found it.
Okay.
I was getting it.
My book is near me, but a few feet away.
Yeah, Shahzaman.
Yeah, Shahzaman. He was hurt, but from the little we see in the book, it seems like he is at least dealing with it in a healthier way.
Yeah. You know, like, just hanging out in his kingdom, not deciding he's going to marry people and kill them every month. You know, how you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, one of the... Okay, so the idea... Okay, for the infidelity as a trauma, like, it is a driving thing in the book, because all of what Scherer is doing is to not be cheated on again. And it's not... It cannot be about, it's one of those things where it's like, it's not about sex, it's about power.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not. It doesn't, like, if he was trying to have one person to be true to him forever, he wouldn't have his plan be to marry a new person every month.
Yeah.
Like, not, like, I'm totally cool with polyamory, polygamy, whatever. That's not what this is.
No.
It's not. It doesn't have anything to do with attraction.
This is
like,
yeah. This is serial marriage murder pact.
Yeah, it's like in the category of like, you know, there's things that have shown up in other fiction that I've read where people have done interesting loopholes to do legalistic things and get around stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a book where it was mentioned that people would temporarily marry the prostitute and then divorce them in the morning so that technically none of it was out of wedlock. Like, that's the kind of weird loophole, but in a different circumstance that this is.
Yeah.
But like turned up to 11. Like it's that kind of category of, well, I only ever sleep with someone I'm married to, but I also can't be comfortable getting close to anyone ever. So I have to kill them in order to have intimacy, but then the intimacy that he can have is curtailed by the plans for the morning that they both totally know about the whole time. Like, I just... Sleep well, I will kill you in the morning works in Princess Bride when they're not sleeping together.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't... It's not good. Yeah, so that's my kind of just initial reaction to this as a thing. I don't know what other thoughts you had about it.
I think that the narrative parallels are interesting. Between Shahryar and his brother Shahzaman, and between Shahryar and between his first wife and Shahrazad.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really well constructed, and I also think that from a trauma perspective, the descriptions of the I almost called it betrayal. It is, but that's not what we've labeled the topic. So I try to keep language consistent. The descriptions of the infidelity are not like in the middle of intercourse, for example. It's just people conspiring in a garden talking together both times. It's very, very pulled back. It's very like, and this happened. So from a trauma perspective, it's not a whole drawn out anything.
Yeah, it was indicating the level of intimacy they must have, but not having an explicit description of it. I mean, it does...
And at no point are you, the audience member, going through it with the character at all.
No. And, like, part of that is definitely because, like, this is YA and written in a storybook style. And the rules are different for YA books. Yes, this is YA.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I mean, YA is a marketing category. And so it, like, there's generally and, like, publisher agreed upon rules where if they put the YA label on it, then if certain topics are in there, then the book is about that topic. Where an adult book can just like have stuff in it without it like being the main thing. With YA, if you're going to mention or include, yeah, it is. If you're going to mention or include certain kinds of topics, then those need to be the topic.
Maybe
and not casually have someone dealing with something that doesn't get unpacked anywhere.
Maybe
as like a general idea.
Maybe it's just because... Oh, that's not true. Goodreads says this was published in 2020.
Oh, no, 1997.
I was gonna say, Goodreads, you are wrong.
You probably found a reissue. The most recent edition, they republished it.
It's the Google search Goodreads like top result.
Well,
I was like, I was reading this when I was maybe 7 or 8.
Also, I don't know if YA was specifically a marketing category in 97. Like, that's the kind of thing that emerged and got more specific in the mid to late 2000s.
Yeah.
So it's possible that when this was written, it wasn't categorized. But now that the categories exist, it has been placed under YA.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think appropriately so.
I mean, it makes sense. It is just interesting to me because, like I said, I read this first when I was 7 or 8, which would have been, 98, 99.
Yeah.
And to me, this was like such an adult book.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, maybe a little weird because my first book I ever remember finishing was the Paxenarian series.
Yeah.
And this felt more adult than that. And, so my perspective is probably a little bit skewed, but...
No, your brain's an interesting place, but yes.
Yeah, but the way that everything... And everything, there is murder in this book, no spoilers, but, our main character makes it through okay. Because we're in this section, so spoilers are allowed.
And also the point of this, the whole point of like the 1001 Nights is that this is how she doesn't die.
Yeah, that's true.
Like that's what's being
if
retold.
you know what the source material is, she lives. But there is actual murder in this book. There is infidelity. There is sickness that results in disability in a couple of cases, actually. There is like the threat of problems, there's the whole hubris, like your life will get worse the more you fail at whatever particular task you're like. There are things in this book that if they were detailed in a different way would be incredibly potentially harmful if someone is susceptible to the topic. But they're not. It's all very sterile is the wrong word. Very matter of fact. Very like,
storybook.
Okay, and this happened, and this happened.
I mean, there's a reason I use the phrase storybook, because if you've ever read a fairy tale, they have some very dark and traumatic things in them. But
that's a good
they're
point.
usually presented starkly. Like
stark. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah. There's very little fluff. When there is editorializing, it is not on the topic of the trauma. Generally speaking.
Yeah. I just grabbed my copy. This book is 218 pages, and I have the small book. If this were a large hardback, it'd be maybe 100 pages, I think.
They usually don't. They usually scale the printing so that the pages are close, but yeah, the official length we've got listed from the publisher is 221. But yeah,
okay, it is a short, small book, but a lot happens.
Yeah, and part of why so much can happen is that everything that happens precisely and starkly, and it circles back to ideas repeatedly rather than drawing them out in any one moment.
Yeah, very true.
So like things come up over and over again, but each time they are touched upon lightly. And that makes infidelity... I mean, for this, we have spent most of our time not talking about the literal infidelity, because as much as it drives the story and you cannot have it without it, it is very much in the background and used as a justification, but the actual incidents are two extremely brief incidents very early on in the book. And that's it. On to our final topic, which is misogyny. So, when someone has a plan that they're just gonna murder a bunch of women one every month until a condition that may or may not ever get fulfilled is fulfilled. Probably have some misogyny going on. Luckily, we have not luckily isn't the right word. There is what I think is one of the most succinct and fascinating examples of misogyny twisting a reading of a situation, like, in real time, happening when the brothers of, I believe it is, Shahzaman's wife. I didn't think it was Sherrer's, but it might have been.
Sherrer's wife was the sister of the deposed former kings.
Okay, it is Sherrer. Okay,
Shahzaman married somebody else, and I don't think we ever actually get her
relationship
identity
or connection.
Or anything.
Okay. So, Sherrer, his wife had 4 brothers, at least 2 of whom are like adults in their early 20s.
5.
One of whom is 5. Okay, and then the youngest.
You forgot the youngest brother, just like they did.
I thought there were 4 and the youngest, or 4 including the youngest. No. I forgot that it was 4 and the youngest. I was thinking of the youngest. But anyway, some of them are...
Because the first and third agree, and the second and fourth always agree, and the youngest is left out.
Okay. Yeah, so... Sorry. So anyway, there's 5 of them. One of them's still a kid. The others are adults in the culture in this book. It sounds like maybe 1 or 2 of them are still technically like elder teenagers, but anyway, they are adults, and they keep forgetting about the 5th one who is not. And some of them are married, but not all of the older 4 are married. And there's this scene where when they find out that their sister cheated on her husband, and had been trying to have her lover, kill him and take the throne. They, over the course of this conversation, which, with the storybook style might have been condensed a bit, but regardless of whether it's condensed, in the space of this single conversation, they talk themselves from, wow, it is sure bad that she did this, to, it is, to, like, not being able to give her credit for her own agency in this situation. And they talk themselves around until it is her husband's fault that she cheated on him and tried to have him deposed because he gave her too much freedom, and like a woman, she didn't know what to do with it, so she tried to kill him.
Yeah, and which ultimately made it, in their words, his fault for not governing his wife because women are weak.
Right. And, leads the ones of them who are married to pledge that they will totally not do this with their wives, and then the ones who aren't married yet to pledge what they will do to the wives they don't have yet so that this doesn't happen. It's like, I definitely won't give my future wife any freedom because that'll solve it.
I just double checked. The youngest brother is 14. The older 2 are married. The 4th brother is not. The 3rd brother is not specified.
Okay.
So we have 2 adults, 1 definite teenager, and then 2 that could be teens or early 20s.
Yeah.
Or maybe a little older. And we're not sure about those middle 2.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, just, here's the thing, because, like, there's kinds of misogyny where it could have stopped, like a woman, she did a betrayal. And that's one kind of misogyny. Like, that's a particular flavor. but the flavor where she isn't really the one responsible because she had too much freedom, that I'd never seen that articulated before. Like, I recognize that I have run into it elsewhere, but getting to see, like, the pattern, the thought process of how one ends up there, or one way that someone can end up there, was fascinating, because I hadn't, like, seen that train of thought before.
Yeah.
And then, you know, obviously we have the style of misogyny that the king is doing, where he, like, there's a line in the book about how he totally wasn't sexist until he decided to do this thing where he keeps killing women. But before that, not sexist. His kingdom was totally fine for women. Is great. Like, there's a line to that effect.
Well,
about
we also see the shock in the Poplus, and
yes,
like, this is not the type of thought process or behavior that anybody was expecting.
Right. No, if he had before this moment endlessly been a cruel tyrant, they would not be in that courtyard to see if she was alive, because they would have thought the options were that he kills her publicly or he kills her privately, but no matter what, she's dead. Instead, they're waiting to see what happens because, yeah, you're right. He hasn't done something like this before. Like, I mean, I said that with a little bit of, like, tongue-in-cheek of course, he wasn't at all sexist before he decided to do this, because you don't get there unless you have something that lets you not think of them as people. And to be fair, the reason that he didn't think of them as people was the massive power gap, and, you know, he's like...
That's the thing, is I don't actually think that is true. I don't think at any point that he is not thinking of women as people.
You think he hasn't thought of...
I think he literally didn't think it through. I think he literally just said, I have to have a wife because I do, and I need to provide heirs because I'm the king. Those are the same reason, by the way.
Yes.
And I don't want to be cheated on again, which means I can't continue to have the same wife because then I'm at risk. So I have to get a new one. But I need to not just divorce a bunch of people so they have to die. And I think that is the farthest that his thought process went. And he didn't even consider, like, a person or even a particular woman. He just went, this is the logic train that I'm going to follow because I don't see a way out.
No,
and
that...
end of thought process. There was no even that women are XYZ. It was literally just, I've been betrayed once, I need to not be betrayed again. Done.
Yeah. But those brothers.
Oh, those brothers are a fully different story.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Unequivocally. Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, trying not to read other versions of this story into this one. Because you're right. His actions in this one don't necessarily have to have anything to do with gender. Other than that, he needs a partner who is female and capable of giving him a child.
Yeah.
Other than that...
But, it should be noted, he didn't even think that through, because she explicitly will not give him a child if she dies every day.
That's a good point.
Like, this is why I say there was no actual thought follow through at all to either a positive or negative conclusion. There was literally just the panic and then the decision, and that was it.
Yeah.
Like, he explicitly did not even bother to go far enough.
Oh yeah, because this
to
book
think
doesn't
of a
even...
wife as just being a birthing person.
Oh yeah, because
didn't
like
even go that far.
this doesn't talk about heirs, you're right.
No.
Like, we kind of assume that the reason he'd want a wife... he'd want a wife is that he is a man attracted to women and he does not want to be denied sex just because he doesn't want to be vulnerable.
But that's not the logic that he puts out there. What he says is, I'm a king, which means that I have to have a wife. And the reason for that is because you have to produce an heir. Like, that is the, like, pretty worldwide... Your ruling partner has to be able to provide a child.
Right.
To continue the dynasty.
In the kind of setup where that matters. And this definitely does seem to implicitly be one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
But
he doesn't even think that through. He literally just goes, I have to have a wife because I'm supposed to. Not because I want one, but because I have to, I'm supposed to. That is his actual wording.
Yeah.
And end of thought process. Nothing else.
No, I do think you're right on that. But
and especially because there's no but you know, women aren't people, so I can't blah blah blah. Literally, the first time he is face to face with a real life person who has a consequence that he has set down, he panics.
Mm-hmm.
And then finds a way to not do the thing. Like, no follow-through, no mistreatment, no dismissal, nothing. Just, oh God, what have I done? This wasn't how I meant to treat this person.
It's like the step 1, I'll figure out step 2 later, step 3, profit, except step 3 is get cheated on.
It was step 1, pain, step 2, panic, step 3, oh God, oh no.
Yeah. All right.
Hey there, Screen Beans. Have you heard about Screen Snark?
Rachel, this is an ad break. They aren't screen beans until they listen to the show.
Fine. Potential Screen Beans. You like movies and TV shows, right?
I mean, who doesn't? Screen Snark is a casual conversation about the movies and television shows that are shaping us as we live our everyday lives.
That's right, Matt. We have a chat with at least one incredible guest every episode, hailing from all walks. We've interviewed chefs,
writers, costumers, musicians,
yoga teachers, comedians, burlesque dancers,
folks in the film and TV industry,
and more.
We'd be delighted for you to join us every other Monday on the Certain POV Podcast Network.
Or wherever you get your podcasts, fresh and tasty off the presses.
What? That's not...
Can I call them Screen Beans now?
Fine.
Screen Beans!
So tune in and we'll see you at the movies or on a couch somewhere.
'Cause you're a whole Screen Beans now.
You will be mine.
On to the wrap-up and ratings. For our gratuity rating for the power imbalance. I think it is at least moderate. I have read books with way more severe and obvious and complicated power imbalances.
Yeah, I don't think this is severe, but I agree it's
moderate.
All
right, infidelity. I'm torn between mild and moderate because the actual thing is really brief. Like, the reaction and the hurt to it drives the rest of the book, though, which is why I'm torn. Well, the themes of it mildly cover the entire book.
I think
infidelity.
We have to look at the fact that this was not an ongoing theme.
Mm-hmm.
It was.
They don't keep bringing it up.
They are reacting to the fact that it happened, but it's not like a thing that everybody is just kind of thinking about. Like, no, it happened and the king is making decisions because of it, but it's not a thing that characters are like pondering or are affecting their actions. At no time do we see anyone other than the king even like put weight into their own actions based on this thing. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not even why our main character does what they do. It's not about that thing.
Yeah. Okay, I'm good with mild.
Okay. I'm okay with that.
It's not backstory because we have
No,
the actual
we did
scene
see
of
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'd say mild. Okay, misogyny. I would have said severe, but you talked me out of the reasons I would have said severe. So I'd say moderate. We have one very specific scene and a bunch of actions that are then, like, driven by that scene.
And I think that scene maybe falls under the category. I think you're right, because I think that scene maybe falls under the category of it was so
egregious.
ABC and over with, and not this, like, long. And also it's the people talking about doing it and not, like, seeing someone go through it. Yeah, moderate.
Okay. All right. Is the trauma integral, interchangeable, or irrelevant? The power balance.
That is
imbalance.
Pretty integral, I think. I think because if you remove the factors that cause it, you no longer have the same story.
Yep.
Same for infidelity.
Okay. Is the infidelity interchangeable? With the caveat that, yes, we understand it's retelling a specific story, and that specific story has this event. If we pretended we weren't necessarily retelling this story, is it interchangeable? Could it have been a different thing?
I can't think of another thing that would have caused the reaction from our king.
Okay.
Like,
not without introducing a whole bunch of other stuff that doesn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah, because the particular reaction emotionally that happens to him, combined with the limitations he decides to set on future relationships, they're so pointed.
It would be hard. Like, the closest I think you could get would be, like, generically replacing it with betrayal. But
even then, like, it would have to be a particular type of betrayal.
And I don't think that's differentiated enough to matter.
It would end up being the same thing. We're just labeling it differently.
Okay, I agree that it's integral. The misogyny,
interchangeable.
Yeah. They do things because of that, but it didn't have to be that.
They logic it out because of that. It could have just been straight up revenge. Like, honestly,
sorry, they do things using that as a justification.
Yeah.
But
they could have literally just said, you wronged us, and done the exact same thing.
Yep. Okay. How was the trauma treated? Was it treated with care? I definitely almost skipped that section by reading the next thingy.
No.
Okay. Power imbalance. Is that treated with care?
I want to argue. Yes.
I'd say yeah. Like, this is treated, like, so much with care that I suspect, like, some of our audience might look at that and go, oh yeah, that is a thing. Like, well, and it's consistent and subtle, and there's other things we could have called it.
Without spoilers, I think the thing that really makes it really care and not just enough is the fact that the person who has the power notices when they take advantage of it and then tries to correct it as best they are able to. They notice it is there and are like, uh-oh, and then do their best.
Yeah. Infidelity. Yeah, enough. Because, like, it doesn't sugarcoat the main thing. And the grief and stress reverberates through the book.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I feel like enough. Misogyny. There's no care.
There's no care, but well, that's not true. We get the one scene, and then we don't have that particular discussion again.
That's a good point. Maybe enough Because, like, it's pretty stark
It's pretty
in that
stark.
one thing.
Yeah, but it's not repeated, and it's not... Again, we're not watching a person experience it. We are watching people decide to do it, which is a little bit different.
Yeah.
I'm
All
okay
right,
with
I'll
enough.
say enough. All right. How clear is the moral directionality? Clear, muddy, or tangled? So clear is when there's kind of one obvious direction of what the book considers to be good or bad. Muddy is when we have no idea because there's a lot of things going on, a lot of different directions. And then tangled is where there are characters with distinct and like conflicting points of view, but all of them make sense and you could agree with any of them.
Or not with any of them, but with a lot
And
of them. Multiple
you could
of them.
enough of them.
Conflicting
yes.
of them.
Yeah. Maybe, So, I was like, I don't need to list possible examples. So how clear is this moral directionality? This felt...
It feels pretty clear to me.
Yeah, it feels clear. Like one character clearly starts off in the wrong and then ends up a little bit better.
And also
Yeah.
you can easily tell when a character is committing a mistake. And things that are morally a mistake and morally a good decision, like it's not ambiguous in the book.
Yeah. Yeah. I do agree that this is pretty clear. All right, the point of view for the trauma and aftermath. Okay, so I do not feel like this is a spoiler because it is literally the framing device.
Okay.
Scheherazade is narrating this from the future, having survived whatever the story is that she's about to tell us.
Yeah, but that's not what this is asking.
No, right. But
Right.
the point of view is she is telling us this from the future. So most of the book feels like a third person omniscient narrator, but like I really thought about the scenes because in my review stuff I have to list what the points of view were.
It's the omniscient part that makes me...
The thing is, I thought about it, and she's not really omniscient. She just knows stuff that Scheherazade would have known, a little bit later. After they'd gotten a chance to talk about it.
So are we just going to put narrator for all of these, then?
Yeah, and, that narrator is... I'd say narrator, and it's future Scheherazade.
Yeah, but it's
not...
still the narrator, but it's not... Because it's not her in the moment.
Yeah, it's not her in the moment, it's her later. I mean, it's just as much her as, during, Assassin's Apprentice, it was him.
No, because we only had his viewpoint. We didn't have the others.
Okay, yeah.
That's the difference.
That's a good point. But even then, the younger brother was in the conversation about that stuff. And would have had reason to be able to convey it. So, I thought about this, is what I'm saying.
Well, I'm arguing
Yeah.
that makes it the character viewpoint and not Scheherazade.
Scheherazade is the character.
No, she's not, because she's not in every scene. That's what I'm saying.
In those scenes,
if we're saying it's the narrator, then it's the narrator. And
No, it's the narrator.
Okay, because if it's not the narrator, then it's not Scheherazade the whole time. That's what I'm saying.
But the narrator is future Scheherazade.
But that's not how this works. You can't say
fine.
that a person in a scene is actually the point of view, because eventually later, when it's not the same time,
Okay, all right. Other than the framing device, none of it is the first person.
yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah, it's the narrator. I just was admiring the way that all of the scenes are ones that older Scheherazade could eventually come to know about.
Oh no, that's
from
very
first-hand
very
sources.
Good. Yeah, no, it's put together very well. But that doesn't make Scheherazade, the character in the story, is also the narrator. No. It's an older version of her that is no longer in the middle of these events. That is a different person.
Okay, that's if you want to note it that way, I'm fine with that. But yes, I think we're in agreement. For the trope spotter, the cliffhanger. Yeah, so cliffhanger is when you leave a story at some dramatic moment to be picked up later. Like they do at some of the end of TV shows, and this is a very high stakes cliffhanger.
I was gonna say, this cliffhanger is not that. This cliffhanger is during the story. We have an ongoing cliffhanger. We don't actually leave.
Yeah, so sorry. In this narrative, Scheherazade is telling a series of stories and keeps not finishing it.
But we are not closing the book.
No.
Okay.
No, we're not. I'm saying that I'm saying that the trope that this book is using, this entire story is about someone telling stories with a series of cliffhangers in order to stay alive. That's this story.
Okay.
So within the book, that's our trope. The book didn't pull a cliffhanger.
I'm going to clarify that just a little bit for two reasons.
Mm-hmm.
One is because that's not the definition you read me earlier. And two is because that doesn't make sense for us to pick it if that's what we're going with, in my opinion. We're keeping the... I just want to clarify for our audience.
Uh-huh.
The reason we picked the cliffhanger as a thing is because Scheherazade's life is in a state of cliffhanger perpetually, because we don't know what's going to happen to her specifically.
Sorry,
it's not about the framing. It's not about the narrative device. It's about this character who may or may not live or die.
No,
so
right, yes.
Okay.
And, sorry, there's a meta bit where the way she's trying to stay alive is by telling stories that she ends on cliffhangers.
That's very cool.
Yes,
but
that's what I was trying to say.
Okay, that's very cool. But we needed to set up the actual thing first. That's all. I just want to make sure that we have said the actual thing that we are talking about, and then the cool thing is also part of it.
Yeah, I did primarily mean the cool thing, but yeah, the fact that we don't know if she's going to die or not the next day at the end of the chapter, yeah, that's in there too. That's a thing. And favorite non-traumatic thing about the book. Is there one? No, there is.
There's a lot of non-traumatic.
Yeah, I really like the Oasis scene. Because, I was having a hard time caring about the other long story that she was telling. I know it's the one that was keeping her alive, but we don't hear the middle of it, and so that, messed with my ability to be interested in. But because it's this super long saga where she's telling it for nights and nights and nights, and we don't hear the middle of it because that's what the Tales of 1001 Nights are, is all these stories. We get the beginning.
I don't understand
and we get
that. We had all of the parts, we just didn't get them written out as 50 pages each.
There's implicitly more stuff that happens on other nights where we don't have the book sit down and tell us the whole story. Anyway, that is a thing. That's fine. I really liked the one-off story that she tells when they go to the Oasis.
Okay, cool.
What was your favorite thing?
My favorite thing is when... my favorite thing is when Shahryar says, "Wow, that king sure is foolish." And Scheherazade goes, "Yeah, good thing he's just a story character." And the king is like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." Because these stories are explicitly for the people who bring them out of the chest. And he knows, and he knows, and is thinking about that.
Yup. All right. Well, that's going to do it for the Storyteller's Daughter. In case you're new, we recently switched from fortnightly to monthly. Unless you're a patron, you can catch more bonus episodes. So check out our Patreon page. But yeah, if you're a regular audience member, we will catch you next month. And if you're a patron, we might catch you a little bit sooner. All music used in this podcast was created by Nicole as Heartbeat Art Co. and is used with permission. Our transcriptionist is Heather. Follow her on Twitter at MamaDragon20. We're proud members of the Certain Point of View Network. Find all the CPOV shows at www.certainpov.com. You can contact us on Twitter at BooksThatBurn or by email at booksthatburn@yahoo.com. Please consider leaving us a tip at ko-fi.com/booksthatburn or becoming a monthly supporter on patreon.com/booksthatburn. All patrons get access to our upcoming book list, bonus content, including the second half of all interviews, and will receive a one-time shout-out. To get updates on our written reviews, recent episodes, and newly completed transcripts, subscribe to our fortnightly newsletter at buttondown.email/booksthatburn. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave us a review wherever you're listening. This helps people to find the show. Thanks for listening. We'll be back in 2 weeks.